Hey everybody, this is Ann and welcome back to Painting Big. Yes, I've got a mask on today. This is going to be exciting. So I have to first give props to the people who turned me on to this device we're going to cover today. Yes, a device. A labor-saving device. Ooh. Erin Lovejoy and Liz Hunt of Miniatured Monthly actually turned me on to this. Actually, Erin did at this show. I think Liz was the one who was like, maybe you should use this. And Erin was like, oh, this is brilliant. So what we're going to be using today, guys, is a electric nail drill. Let's see if I can get that. There we go. Electric nail drill. Yes, it is pink. Yes, it is for doing the work, the fine work, polishing, buffing, and trimming of nails with, effortless ease. Pretty much no more files, right? It's a tiny mini Dremel. No, I do not think that normal Dremel bits fit into it, but it comes with a set of bits. And it is the most fun way to remove mold lines that I have yet found. And 3D print support nubbins, and 3D print lines, and the list goes on. Shall we jump in? Let's. Alrighty, here we go. And you can see all the stuff I've been playing with, right? All right, so here we go. First of all, let's talk about, I talked about what it is. Here's a close-up look. And if you search for electric nail drill on the Amazon, you will find a couple of these. You want one, what Erin said is they all seem to be about the same, but you want one with lots of extras of the sanding nubs because you will go through them. They will definitely wear down. I was just using this one and the edge is already worn slightly. So, and since on miniatures, you are going to be using that fine edge to get little details, it is important. At first, I thought this was going to be way too big, and it is too big to fit in some spaces. But the edge actually means you can go up against things really easily and really get the edging on things and recesses. So the pieces you get with it are usually a bag or a bundle of a bunch of these. You want 60, 108, you want a bunch. Because if you do a lot of models, you're going to go through them. And you may as well have extras. This is under 20 bucks on Amazon. So it's a bargain as far as I'm concerned. It's now the only way I'm going to be removing mold lines until you get down to the super fine stuff when you still might need a hobby knife. Now, you get a bunch of these little metal bits and then you get one of these chucks and that's what the sanding thing goes on. So you slide it on and then you slide the whole thing. This has quite a decent support in it. As you can see, it's not terribly adjustable, but you slide that in till about 5 millimeters are showing. You want it to be well seated. And then you just go. And how does it go, you ask? Well, it comes with this nice AC power cord, which plugs into a USB port, which is perfect because my Tautronics lamp, has an extra port on the side of it for charging your phone or whatever you want to use. So I am able to use it right here plugged into my mini painting lamp, which is ridiculous. And if you're interested in these, it's the Tautronics LED light lamp. I think I've talked about it. Tautronics. And they make a bunch of LED desk lamps, but essentially this one comes with, it's an L shape and it comes with a USB port in the side, which is perfect. So you get all these different chucks with all these different sizes and shapes, which is actually useful. We'll get into that why in a moment. And then you get a bunch of these little sandy things and in its own little nice kit that keeps everything very small and tucked away, which is fantastic. Now, before we go any further, we are going to mention that you do want to mask with this sucker. It is a Dremel. It is grinding. You are either grinding 3D print resin, or you are grinding metal, or you're grinding plastic, or you're grinding actual resin. All of these things are things you do not want to breathe. So please don't just use a cloth mask. Use one that's actually this is RZ mask. This is for airbrushing, so it stands up. It's got a filter, a charcoal filter, so it will stand up to aerosolized paint and all the rest of it. Use something that's for serious. Your airbrushing mask is fine. So, but you definitely want to use something because resin is terrible to breathe and this will give you a very fine dust. So be careful on that one. You also may want to get a little hand or shop vacuum just to kind of vacuum up your area. It doesn't hurt, or vacuum more often. If you're like me and you vacuum very seldom, make a note to vacuum after you do a lot of this so you can get that dust up out of your environment. All right. However, that's really the most annoying part about it right there. If you can tolerate that, you're good. So you will want a hobby knife still for cleaning because there are still going to be tiny little bits, especially on models like Vitanis, who's got so many tiny bits. there's going to be areas that you still need a hobby knife. And then you also will want a stiff brush. I'm just using a Taklon flat, but something that's fairly stiff, and that is useful for brushing the particulate out of the area. The kit comes with a gigantic one, but you can just use a little Taklon brush. This is my like terrain brush to brush the grit out of there. You don't want to use one of your good brushes. Just use an old synthetic or something that will actually take that stuff off. All right, so now we're ready to get going. So what I'm going to do is, once my mask is up, obviously I can't talk as readily for you guys, but I'm going to take these and use them on different models, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. I will say that the grinding disc seems to be much better on the 3D prints and the metal. Like, this is brilliant on metal. Actually, all of this is brilliant on metal. So if you work with metal models still, you're going to like all of it. With the bones, though, what I found is this is a little coarse. So I ended up using this guy and liking the results better. It's a bit finer, and so you get less of that kind of grit. And you may still need to polish a little bit with your knife, but not much. I find that Bones Black, what I found is that it's not ideal on Bones Black. I'll show you close up in a bit, but it'll work great on Bones USA. So without further ado, let's get to this puppy. Gonna get real close. I'm gonna do these nubbins. Let's get in focus. All right, so in focus, do you see these 3D print artifacts here? It's right on her smooth skin, and for the most part, this is, I think this came to me from RPG Minis and More on Etsy. It's a beautiful, almost flawless print, but she does have those little nubbin lines still from the separation of the supports. So let's try to take those off using our awesome little nail Dremel. I'm going to put my mask up. After that, I want to take you guys in and show you what I'm doing on this mold line here. This mold line, you can see it right there on the shoulder. And then we'll switch nibs and we'll tackle Darius. All right, let's get to it. Here we go with the sanding thing. Oh, I should mention 2 settings first. The settings for this and the controls are all on this. And there's a speed control. So if you really are not comfortable with power tools, this is so gentle. Like, I'm really nervous around power tools. I'm convinced I'm going to take my finger off. But this is so gentle, and because it's meant for use near human skin, it actually is pressure controlled. So you cannot bear down enough to really hurt yourself. It has an auto stop feature. You've got a reverse and forward button here that turns it on and starts it spinning. The center setting is off. So you got to turn it off and on, but it is pretty easy to just keep it here by you and just, adjust things. All right, let's go. Adjusting mask. Maybe you guys can still hear me. I'll see if it isn't too muffled on video. Let's flip it into forward. And here it is. Here, I'll show you guys. There you go. And then it's going. It makes a very, very little noise. Hold your model. Figure out where you're going. Very gently. I'm hardly touching this. You can see the little tiny bits. You can see that it's taking some material off. And I can be very gentle with it, but this is what I was talking about. Like, when you want to get up near this collar here, you can just use the edge of your sanding disc, and it gets like right up there. So you can get right up next to it and not have to worry. So let's put this one aside. Because I'm thinking the downside of this big thing is that it does take off a lot of material because it's coarser, right? So we'll also try the metal one on this to take off some of this finer detail. So let's take our ogre. This shoulder is a great spot to take down a mold line. Now I'm going to use the side. For big flat areas, this sanding disc is great. Ta-da! And the best thing about this is, guys, is that I didn't have to actually, you can see that I just took off a little bit of it for you. And I didn't quite get all of that. But the best thing about this is that I didn't have to put a ton of pressure on my hands to do this, like usual with filing. It's a really light touch. It's a really relaxed grip. It's really comfortable to hold, and you don't have to press. So you aren't like torquing your hands. So if you have arthritis or you have hand pain of any other, like fibromyalgia or anything like that, like this is gonna be so much more comfortable for you than trying to grind away at things with a file. All right, let's try to use the metal bit, because you can also use the metal tip on this to get into the cracks and stuff in here. So let's try that. This recessed line here where it goes down here. You have to press maybe just a little bit more, because it's a finer texture, so it doesn't take off as much. But this is where it gets really fun, because you can get finer detail here. You can get down into these creases. You can use the tip. It's brilliant on metal, like it really is. Get down into the bit between these muscles. Kind of polish it up. Hit the part that I didn't quite get before. Take that mold line right out of there. Look at that. Look at that. And you didn't have to grind at it. Like, just if you work with metal models, seriously, folks, seriously, this is brilliant on metal. So let's look at what it does on Bones USA. You've got Darius here. We've got this mold line right up the side of his hat. See it? Big mold line. Gentle touch here because you're working with plastic. So I'm using like barely touching it. I asked Aaron Lovejoy about this, about using it on Bones USA, and he was like, I've never tried it. And then like 5 minutes later, he got back to me saying it works. But you may need to use a knife on some super fine detail areas. So, ta-da. Hey guys, we don't have a mold line anymore. Now here is an edge. This is where you're probably going to want to go. I'm going to try it though. With the tip, you might be able to do it. But you probably want to use a knife on that kind of area where there's just an edge. It's just going to be a little bit easier. Let's see here. Oh yeah, the sleeve. Normally a pain in the butt, right? Like, I think that I told Aaron that he should totally like figure out who makes these suckers and brand one. Get the Miniature Monthly mold line remover going on. So you can see some napping. I'm getting some plastic bits, but in general, because this is finer, and you'd see more on Bones Black, which we'll do in a second. So you want to definitely press like over the mold line. And you can press a little harder and take off more material. And use the body of this. Remember, you have other chucks as well. So if you think you could get more mileage with this one or that one, go for it. But the best thing about this is it's not really taking me any effort, and it's kind of fun. So you may have to try a couple different angles, but in general, you're going to be able and as you get more comfortable with it, you get more comfortable with how much you can press and how much you can take off without damaging the model. So let's turn this off. And this is where I say you need a brush. Sometimes I'll take my fingernail and scrape a little bit too. Just to make sure that if there's any little bits of plastic. But in general, that's really smooth. Like, it might need a little bit more polish. Whenever you see a little bit roughness, you can come back in. And up here in the folds, this tip is really nice. Because you can, just like you saw me doing down there, you can fit the body of it right in here. So that's what that looks like on Bones USA. Much easier than taking a knife and files to it. And again, you don't have to put any pressure on it. So here on Bones Black, it's a little bit more plasticky, right? It's a little more rubbery of a surface. But I did use it to take this mold line off right down here. As you can see, there's a little more texture. I'm kind of betting, though, that after a coat of paint, you wouldn't really see it. So let's try to take this mold line off of the cape here. All right. So you can see how you still have, because it's Bones Black and it's a little bit more rubbery of a plastic, it is still getting us a little bit of debris, like powderiness. But I'm betting that if I just scrape my hobby knife over that surface, I'll be able to take some of that stuff right off. And it still gave me a pretty decent remove. So I would say on Bones Black or regular Bones, maybe not a great tool, or maybe I need to find a different tip for it. I'm using the lowest setting of speed, and I'm using a couple different tips, and they both end up a bit nappy just because, you know, it is kind of rubbery, so it tends to like spit out these little bits of plastic when you hit it with something that's grinding at it. But it still let me buff off that mold line pretty effortlessly and pretty fast. So I would say on Bones USA and metal, use the metal tips, and it really makes it easy. It really, really does. And then on 3D prints, I would say either your metal. Oh yeah, that's right. We're going to try to get finer on the 3D print. Hold on. Let's try our metal. So here we can get a little finer, right? Because we've got this little finer crack here. The nice thing about this fine metal nib is that you can get pretty close, and it's not nearly, as you can see it's not taking as much stuff off. It's not taking as much material off. So you can be a little finer with it as far as where you're using it. And I could be using like a sanding, pad or a sanding stick to do this. But this is like, I hate to say it, but this is more fun. And it's just so effortless. It's just this really light touch. I don't have to grind. I've got a fine tip so I can get into small spaces. And it hardly, it just buffed those little indents right off the surface. Like, now when I look at it, I think they're pretty much gone. But you can see how fine the dust is that you get off of that. So make sure not to breathe it, guys. No breathing this dust. All right, so there we are. This is my new baby. And I hope that maybe those of you who are having, struggle with prep and struggle with cleanup, and, it takes forever and the tools hurt, or it's a lot of effort, you could maybe get this and try it. Honestly, even if it is just a toy, and it does things just a little bit faster, if it makes mold line cleanup fun, where I actually enjoy sitting down and cleaning models because this is just kind of fun to use, I am all for it. So like I said, it is a electric nail drill, and you can find them on Amazon for under $20. And I really think it's kind of a game changer for me, especially now that I'm working on more 3D models. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit of a different topic than I normally cover, but I figured this was important enough that $2 people and everybody up need to see it, okay? So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're intrigued. You know, maybe one of your friends can pick it up and you can all try it and see what you think. All right, thanks for watching, everybody, and this is Anne signing off.